executive editor at America Media, and we are glad to have you with us via Facebook Live today. I'm joined today by J.D. Long Garcia, our senior editor, by Antonio de Luera Brust, one of our O'Hare Fellows, and Ken Arco, our director of advertising. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So we're here today to talk a bit about the National Call-In Day for Dreamers. And this is a day proposed to us by the bishops to have us call to our representatives, our congresspeople, and to talk to them about how we feel the immigration in our country today is going, particularly on behalf of Dreamers. So, JD, can you tell us, what is DACA and what are Dreamers, for folks who are wondering what this whole day is about?
Yeah, DACA for years now has protected immigrants who came here with their parents and they're undocumented immigrants, and it was an executive order put into place by President Obama. And last September, President Trump announced that he would be removing that order effectively March 5th. If you've been following it in the news, there's been a lot of back and forth about the issue, and despite one of the things I think it's important to remember is that 70% of Americans have said that they are in favor of finding a way for Dreamers to stay here. And despite that, such a large number of Americans being in agreement about that, the Congress still has not been able to pass anything.
Well, and Congress is actually largely supportive of the Dreamers staying as well, but it's often the extra political things that are tacked onto this that cause a challenge, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's a great point. I mean, it does seem, Archbishop Gomez said recently that it seems like the Dreamers are being used as political pawns, so that certain parties are using the Dreamers in order to achieve some other means. And that's what I think is important for us to remember as Catholics is that these are human beings. We talk about the 2.2 million Dreamers that are here. Currently, there's maybe an estimated 700,000 that are protected by DACA, protected from deportation by DACA, and have their work permits. But there's more than that. There's the estimated 2.2 million that are still at risk of being deported. So, and these are human beings, and they came over here before they were 18 years old. They speak English. Some of them speak English a lot better than they speak Spanish, and culturally they're American.
Right, because for Dreamers, this is basically the only place they've ever known, and they didn't come here of their own volition either. So it seems a particularly challenging thing to try to send people back to a place that they've never even known.
Right.
That's right, and I think where the bishops are coming from on this is, and asking for this call-in, is that if you remember the McCain-Kennedy bill, over 10 years ago now, when that came before Congress, Congress heard a lot from people that were against comprehensive immigration reform. There was an initiative by a lot of the talk show hosts to have people call in and express their views against comprehensive immigration reform. And, it worked. We did not have comprehensive immigration reform. Now, in this case, the bishops are calling on Catholics to act. There's time for prayer, there's time for action. And the bishops are calling on Catholics to act and take, what will be, a couple minutes of their time to express their views about this. And if Americans do, even if Catholics simply reflect the views of most Americans, the 70%, the Congress will be hearing that point of view. So that's what this call-in is about. There's been this logjam and this sort of a extra push to let Congress know, yeah, this is something we want taken care of. The other thing that I just mentioned is that there's this term that keeps being used, chain migration, and it's being used almost as a negative word for...
It's a kind of pejorative way of describing what has long just simply been immigration.
Right? Yeah, family-based immigration that's been in place since 1965, and it's recognizing that the United States recognizes the family as the as the basic unit of society. A healthy family leads to a healthy society, and then there's this idea with the chain, right? I mean, you think of all these links in a chain that keep coming, or just like this endless cycle or whatever. But the estimates are that people come in for one person for one immigrant, there's maybe two that come in with that immigrant, and it takes years. So this idea of chain migration being like this endless flow of immigrants it's false. It's not a true notion. So what the bishops are also asking Catholics to express is that a legislation that protects the dreamers would not come at the cost of families. I've spoken with dreamers and interviewed them, and they tell me that they don't want anything done on their behalf that's going to hurt their parents.
Right. So what we're doing today is if you want to express some of your beliefs about DACA and dreamers and immigration in our country today, showing you here's how to make that call, because it can be an intimidating thing. Antonio and Ken will be here to make these calls. Antonio, an experienced caller, and
every day
on a number of issues. Ken, is this your first
I've never
call?
spoken to my senators.
All right, so we have people with varying levels of experience here, and I think we're going to go and try to call Antonio's representatives first.
Great.
So we'll try to get them on the line.
We'll call Senator Feinstein from California.
Yeah, and this. Oh, and here's the.
All right, I hear the ringing. There it is.
Hello, this is Senator Dianne Feinstein, and you have reached my Washington, D.C. office. I'm sorry, but all of our lines are busy right now. This phone system will allow you to hold, but it automatically disconnects after 2 minutes. So please, either hold, or if you would rather, call back in a few minutes or 15 minutes or so. Thank you so much.
So we are on hold right now. It will automatically disconnect us in 2 minutes. The phone lines are busy. This is actually a good sign generally, because that means that a lot of people are calling, right? And hopefully on the National Catholic Call-In Day, that means that it's a lot of Catholics calling to express their views on DACA, as the bishops have asked them to do so. A trick in this situation that I've used is often you can call their district offices. So when I can't get through to the
strategy, it's not really a trick.
Well, yeah, you're right. It is your
an appropriate
taxpayer
strategy.
It is your legal
fooling
right
anyone.
to reach your representatives. But often the district offices are less busy. So sometimes when I can't get through to the Washington, D.C. office of one of my senators or my congressman, I'll call their district offices just because I know that those are often less busy. So I guess we'll wait to see how this hold
tell
goes.
us a little bit about what usually happens when you call. Do you get a voicemail? Do you get a person? Do they ask you a lot of scary personal information?
Well, it varies. Sometimes you just get placed on hold and you leave a message. I like to talk to a real person. Maybe it's just superstition, but I feel that if I'm talking to a real staffer, the office itself is kind of registering a little bit more what the energy is, right? And I know from people who've worked in congressional offices or senators' offices that, when the phone lines are all blowing up, they know that they can kind of feel the energy and they can feel their constituents paying attention. So I think calls really do make a difference. And I do like to try to get to that real person. So maybe I'll leave a message in D.C., but if I can't get through, I will try to call a district office to...
Right, because I think a lot of people wonder, well, that's nice, the bishops want us to call in, but does anyone actually care? Does anyone actually register this? But the representatives do actually often tally the responses that you get, and that it adds up. So every call literally can make a difference.
Yeah. And I think you kind of have to imagine what it's like to be in that office when their phone lines are ringing all the time. It's a lot of pressure. And I will say, often be nice to the staffer. A lot of times it is an intern, in college, sometimes even in high school, who's manning those phones. So even if you're really fired up and passionate and your senator voted a way you didn't want them to, I would still always stress, be polite, you know. It's not actually going to be the representative picking up the phone, and, you know, don't ruin someone's day. But at the same time, it is important to be honest about your views and to make sure that those get across. You asked me about whether they ask you personal questions. Not really. They will ask you where you live, or oftentimes your zip code, just to make sure that you are in fact a constituent.
Right. They can probably look you up based on your name and your zip
yeah,
code and say, hey, are you here? Are you registered to vote?
Exactly. And it's best to not call someone who is not your representative, just because that blocks a phone line for someone who is registered to vote there. And so, though oftentimes those calls will kind of get discounted too, right? If you call someone and then it's like, oh, you don't actually live here.
Sure, yeah.
They'll discount that. But so I would stress, call your representative. But if you're wondering about how to kind of get the most bang for your buck, if what you want to do is really make a difference for the Dreamers. Obviously, I'm from California, so both my senators are Democrats, and fairly liberal ones at that. But some people, for example, Colorado have a senator who's a Democrat and a senator who's a Republican. I would say, if you can, call both. But if you really want to put pressure on the DREAM Act specifically, I would recommend calling the Republicans, simply because, as JD mentioned, it has been the Republicans who, even though most of them are nominally for a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers, even President Trump has come out in favor of Dreamers and has oftentimes described, his great love for them. He's tweeted that no one really wants to see them kicked out, and I think that's true.
Right. Antonio, I think we have your district office
we do?
Available.
All right.
So we can switch over to that.
Great. Let's call them.
We're trying this call now.
Thank you for calling the Los Angeles office of U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein. Our normal business hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you have received this message during those hours, we may be receiving an unusually high volume of calls. Please try again later. Our fax number is 310-914-7318. Thank you for your call.
So I believe they are also busy, though I suspect it's the time difference, because they said their hours are 9 a.m. And if it's 11 here in California, I don't think they've opened yet.
Sure. Or your advice has just flooded their phone lines.
Yeah. that could also be it. But
that makes sense. All right.
Okay. Well, I think then maybe we should circle back to me and.
Yeah. That sounds good. We'll try for Ken in New Jersey, in which we're on the same time zone.
East Coast time.
And. Is it, Jose, JD, while we're waiting, do you think that this is something unique for the bishops to ask us to do, or is this something that they've kind of had rally cries around other issues in this way before?
Yes, the bishops have asked us to act on many different issues in the past, and there's certainly issues in which the government doesn't act in accordance to Catholic teaching, including life issues with capital punishment and abortion and euthanasia. There's different things like that the bishops have taken a very strong stand on. However, at the same time, it would be. They have taken a definitive stance on immigration for years, and it's been something that, whether or not they've been effective, that's maybe a different question. But they've been very vocal about it and encouraging Catholics to move in a particular direction. And I think that we're seeing so much support for Dreamers today has a lot to do with that recognition of the humanity. So it does seem to be getting through.
Now, we have some Facebook comments to share with you as well. Mary Jane has commented on Facebook, these people have had years as adults to rectify their situation, and if they have not, they need to go. So the question would be, why don't people rectify the situation? What does that mean in this context?
No, I think that's a very important thing to talk about, and I appreciate that someone took the chance to express that. I think that immigrants have to be looked at as individuals, and each has an individual situation. Now, in this case, depending on how an immigrant entered into the United States, they have different avenues available to them for how to regularize their status. In the case of Dreamers, that's not always the case. I interviewed Dreamers who have been able to do so because they've married a U.S. citizen, and then they've had that avenue open to change their status. But there's a host of situations, including we've heard a lot about the temporary protected status. People who are here with temporary protective status. But temporary meaning 18 years. It's kind of a flexible definition of temporary. So I think that's it's important to see each person with their individual case, and also that it takes years and years for people to legalize.
And I think the real bottom line is that for DACA, there's no one on DACA who would not prefer citizenship, right? Like anyone who really has a path to citizenship already has probably already gone for it. People who are on DACA, almost by definition, do not have a path to citizenship. That is what we are advocating for when we call for a DREAM Act. A DREAM Act would say, okay, these people have been here for years. If you're on DACA, you've already passed a background check. You have certain educational requirements. These are not, by definition, if you're on DACA, you have passed a criminal background check. These people are not criminals. They're essentially Americans in everything but law. And the problem that exists, that I think there might be some confusion about, is that people think, oh, well, why don't they become citizens? The fact is, they can't become citizens, and DACA protected them from deportation and allowed them to work, but it's not a path to citizenship. And as we've seen, it's very vulnerable to the whims of the executive branch. So what Congress needs to do, in my opinion, is to create a path to citizenship for dreamers, so that they can become citizens.
So that there is a chance
so
to
that
say,
there is a
hey,
chance
we
to
are
become
going to
citizens.
rectify our situation, and you have given us this
Exactly.
way to
So
do
I
it.
don't-
That
I-
makes a lot of sense. Ken, I
Yeah.
think that we are going to call your representative now.
I would love to speak with
So
them.
this is, we get to witness history in the making with Ken
Ken's first.
exercising his democratic rights.
I think I did wave to him once in a parade, but this will be a step up in my
Probably you
activity.
don't have to bring that up in the
Okay.
call.
You have reached the office of Senator Robert Menendez. The office hours are Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. If you reach this message during our business hours, all of our lines are currently busy. If you would like to leave a message for the Senator, please include your name and zip code. For the latest news from Senator Menendez, including video and audio updates, visit us on the web at menendez.senate.gov. Thank you and have a great day.
Okay, so hi, my name is Ken Arco, and I am a constituent of Fairhaven, New Jersey. I'm a practicing Catholic. I urge Senator Menendez to support a bipartisan, common sense, and humane solution for dreamers that protects them from deportation and provides them with a path to citizenship. I also reject proposals that undermine family immigration or protections for unaccompanied children. As a Catholic, I know that families are not chains, but a blessing to be protected. So please ask Senator Menendez to act now to protect our immigrant brothers and sisters. And thank you very much. Have a great day. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Congratulations
How was
on
that?
exercising your democratic rights. How do you feel?
I feel like I did something on behalf of those that I would care about. So,
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what the bishops are hoping that you feel.
thank you, Bishop O'Connell, then, for pushing us.
Very good. Yeah, it's it's a powerful experience, and it's not easy, right? Like, so sometimes you're going to have to call back if you want to express your
Right.
views. It's not the democratic process is not always just a very smooth process, as we have learned.
Right.
And we do have some other questions from social, actually. So one question is, what does today's Supreme Court decision mean for Dreamers? Antonio, you were talking about this morning
Yeah.
at one of our meetings. You want to start us off?
So, essentially, after Trump announced that DACA would essentially end March 5th, there were now 2 court rulings from lower courts that essentially said that's not going to happen, that DACA is a constitutional program. The logic that Trump's Justice Department gave for ending the program was that it was unconstitutional. So these court rulings mean that even after the March 5th deadline, DACA permits that expire can still be renewed.
But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't call today,
It
right?
doesn't mean that we shouldn't call
Because,
today.
JD, you were saying this morning that there are other reasons that could be used to try to take away this, and that the deadline could still loom.
Yeah, and I think, Antonio, you were going there. That we're talking about renewals of DACA, right? I mean, there's a quick math there. There's over 1 million Dreamers right now that are not protected by DACA, and they're in danger of deportation today. And in addition to that, because this is an executive order, and the second decision in particular, I remember reading, the judge said, it's not that the president doesn't have the power to end this, end DACA. It's that the reasons given were not legitimate. So that was the ruling. So I can foresee the president deciding to do that. It's still within the executive powers for him to end DACA.
Right.
Right. So it's still within folks who are interested in speaking out about this issue. It's still within our rights and our within a good idea to call. The text that we've been using is adapted from the Ignatian Solidarity Network, which you can find at ignatiansolidarity.net. And you can feel free to use that text and then to adapt it for your own feelings and beliefs on this issue. It's helpful sometimes to think about it before you call, so you know what you're going to say, especially if it's your first time.
Right.
Yeah, no, it makes quite a bit of sense. I think we're going to try to call California one more time,
Okay.
And see how it goes. But if not, you may have to call on your own time later. But
I
given
will
your
certainly
track
be doing
record,
that.
we don't think that will be a problem for you.
Yeah, I think making it a habit actually helps a lot. You know, it's scary the first time, but the more you get used to it. All right, here we go. It's ringing.
Hello, this is Senator Dianne Feinstein, and you've reached my Washington, D.C. office. I'm sorry, but all of our lines are busy right now. This phone system will allow you to hold, but it automatically disconnects after 2 minutes. So please, either hold, or if you would rather, call back in a few minutes or 15 minutes.
Senator Feinstein's office, this is Tara.
Hi, my name is Antonio De La Huera Bruce, and I am a constituent from Davis, California. I'm calling because I am a practicing Catholic, and I urge Senator Feinstein to support a bipartisan, common sense, and humane solution for Dreamers that protects them from deportation and provides them with a path to citizenship. I also reject any proposal that undermines family immigration or protections for unaccompanied children. As a Catholic, I know that families are not chains, but a blessing to be protected. Please ask Senator Feinstein to act now to protect our immigrant brothers and sisters. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
All right, great. Thanks again for calling.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was a live one.
That's
Yeah. Which does sometimes make it a little awkward to just be like,
it's interesting to hear like impassioned speech, and then have someone expect she's not there to debate you.
Right.
She's not there
No.
to,
No.
So you don't. So in some ways, if you're nervous, you don't anticipate any pushback from someone.
Yeah.
It is odd to be listening on my end and hear her just say, "Okay, thanks."
Yeah.
I've given this impassion.
Exactly. And they are. I think it's important to remember that they are there for you, right? They are working for you to facilitate your ability to influence the democratic process, as is your right of citizenship. And the dream would be that dreamers would also have that right of citizenship because they are parts of our communities. And in a way, that the biggest irony is that because they're not citizens, they do not have a voice in this debate that most intimately and dramatically affects them.
Right. So someone has asked us actually to just sort of restate what we were saying before. This idea that there is no legal path for the folks covered by DACA, the folks that have been brought as children, usually by their parents, to this country when they were children. The U.S. currently doesn't offer them a way to, quote unquote, fix their situation. So can you just describe that a little bit more?
I think what we just have to remember is that Dreamers have done everything right. People on DACA have actually trusted the government with their home addresses, with their fingerprints. They've passed criminal background checks. And the U.S. government essentially said, give us your information, and in exchange, we promise to not deport you and to give you a work permit, so that we're essentially recognizing, all right, you're here, we're going to help you have a life. And you can look at all of the statistics about DACA's effect on Dreamer populations. It's been incredibly beneficial for them and for society as a whole. And now it's almost as if we're breaking that promise to them. We said, give us your information, you'll be safe. And now all of a sudden, maybe they're not going to be safe. And because they've given the government their information, they might actually be the most at-risk population of undocumented immigrants. And we've already seen the Trump administration has been willing to go after almost any case. They've really gone after low-hanging fruit. And I know, JD, you've reported a lot about some of these cases.
I think that, I didn't mention this. I don't know if we've actually deferred action for childhood arrivals, right? That's what it stands for.
Right.
So deferred action means like that the action's been put off. So like in each one of these cases, they came here as children, but they came illegally, right? So either they crossed the border illegally or they overstayed their visas. Now there isn't any way for someone to become a citizen from there. People who came in, which like 50%, they say so 50% actually are just visa overstays. So they did enter legally, but if you entered illegally, there's no way to rectify that. And I don't want to give legal advice here because I think it's important to consult an immigration expert on these things, but like what Antonio is saying is that there are cases where if you came and overstayed your visa, and you got married to a U.S. citizen, or you were petitioned by a sibling that was a U.S. citizen, or there are different avenues like that. But those are explored. Like the dreamers that can do that do that.
They're on their way to
but
do that.
Yeah, but that avenue isn't open to all of them, and even with the Supreme Court decision, where we're talking about the ones that can actually renew there is 700,000. So there's over 1 million that are here that are in immediate danger of deportation, and they came in the same way. They weren't 18 years old. They were children when they came here. They're Americans, and and they're valuable assets to our society, even if it's from a selfish point of view. So it actually makes a lot of economic sense, and economists have said as much, for us to do something for dreamers.
Right. So there's a moral argument, there's an economic argument, and the bishops have made their argument.
That's
so
right.
Thank you all for joining us today in this conversation. Thank you for joining us via Facebook Live, and you can read more of JD's reporting at americamagazine.org. You can hear more from Antonio on americamagazine.org as well, often on this issue. And you can go to ignatiansolidarity.net to find text, models of text that you might be able to use if you feel passionate about this issue as well. So on behalf of all of us, we appreciate your joining us, and thanks, and have a great National Call-In Day for the Protection of Dreamers.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary.